Okay, so let's officially begin. Welcome to Safe Sanctuaries training. I hope that in the next hour you find the information that we provide you relevant and useful when dealing with the youth here at St. Andrews. You all should have a folder that has the Safe Sanctuaries policy in it, as well as the attachments to the policy. And you will also have the slides for this presentation that you can refer back to as well. And I'll reiterate again, since this is the pilot group, we'd really like your feedback. If at any time you have a question or a comment, just feel free to raise your hand or blurt out even. I know that might go against your teacher brain, but we really do want input to make sure that this is the best it can be. As you can see, we have the support from our pastors. They've seen this policy and are in agreement with it, the way that we have developed it. I'll let you read that. Okay, the topics we will be covering during this training are why implement the Safe Sanctuaries policy, the review of the actual policy, what you need to do, and any questions. And then we'll turn in any completed forms that you fill out tonight. So why implement a policy at St. Andrews? First of all, to protect our children. We want to provide a safe physical environment and a safe emotional environment as well. And so that's our number one reason, is to protect the children that are here, that are trusting us to lead and guide them. Secondly, we want to protect our staff and volunteers, which are you. You need to know what the rules and parameters are so that you can effectively lead our children and so that you can not be found negligent in any way. This gives you clear guidelines to follow. We also want to protect our church. St. Andrews has a great reputation of having quality programming for children, and we want to uphold that by continuing to have a safe place for them to come. And also to provide guidance to help us make correct decisions when administering our programs. So in other words, if I know I'm going to have 30 children in a program, I can then, plan for that by how many grown-ups I think I will need to be present. Are there going to be youth helpers, and who will they pair with? And I can look at our policy and see that, oh yes, I can't let a youth lead on their own. They need to be with an adult. So it gives us great rules to follow. So the review of our policy, we'll first go over definitions. The application of the policy, which means who does this policy apply to? How we select workers, how we oversee the programs, appropriate boundaries, advance notice to parents, injuries to children, responding to allegations of child abuse, and a participation covenant, which is an agreement that you will sign that says, yes, I agree to follow these guidelines.
We're not going to go through all of the definitions that are in the policy, and on the left-hand side of your packet is actually the policy, or the Safe Sanctuary policies, and that's printed front and back to try and conserve. We will be providing this policy to everyone who goes through the trainings and who will be working with our children. When we refer to children in the Safe Sanctuary policies, instead of saying children and youth, children refers to anyone who is under the age of 18. Now, even though we will have some 18-year-olds who are involved in our youth programs, might be involved in our choirs, we definitely have a number of youth involved with ASP who are 18 and over. We have young people in youth group who reach the age of 18 before they graduate. So we will still apply these policies to those individuals when they're here as part of our programming, but for definitions, when we're talking about, especially when it comes to, as Chris mentioned, youth who are helping out and volunteering and helping with younger children, We use the term children to mean anyone who's under the age of 18. St. Andrews facilities means any location that's owned by us or temporarily controlled by us, including our vehicles. So basically our campus, which is this facility, the annex, of course we might do things in the parking lot, and then we use the bus, we use the van. Those all refer to St. Andrews facilities, because as long as it's something that we're involved with using or providing a program for. If we are going to ASP and we're traveling in those vehicles, that's considered St. Andrews facility, because it's something that is temporarily controlled by us and being used by us. Or if we're taking a group of kids to a concert someplace, or taking them to another church, or whatever it might be, those are considered St. Andrews facilities, because we are temporarily in control of, and we have a program that's involving our children in that St. Andrews program, which then program means any activity or event that's planned by St. Andrews that involves participation of either our children or their friends or their guests. So we're talking about, Vacation Bible School. We're talking about youth ministry gatherings on Sunday nights. We're talking about confirmation trips up to the Islamic Mosque. We're talking about our Appalachia Service Project, or ASP trips in the summer. There are a huge number of things that we do that involve young people who are under the age of 18. And if it's something that we have planned and we're coordinating, that falls under that category or definition of program. A volunteer means any adult who is working with children for one of those St. Andrews programs. And staff then, of course, are a separate category, but a volunteer is anyone who's working with those young people. Wrong way. And in terms of who the policy applies to, it's obviously going to apply to any program that we are in charge of, that St. Andrews is actually in charge of and responsible for, regardless of location again. So, if we're going to play laser tag at QZAR in Sylvania, or we're walking down to Trinity Episcopal to go to the Taizé worship service, or we're right here in this building having Vacation Bible School, those are considered to be programs, and those are our policies will apply to those. We also have a number of outside groups who come in and use our facilities, and many of them involve working with or involve children. We have Chrysalis who comes and uses our facilities they have 4 Chrysalis weekends here that are deep spiritual weekends for young people. And that happens 4 times a year. We have a Boy Scout troop that meets here, and they are here every week using the facility. We have other outside groups who often will come in and have special programs. We've hosted the Happy Weekend, which brings 150 area junior high school kids in. So any outside groups that use our facilities are also going to need to either follow our Safe Sanctuaries policies as they're written, or they will need to provide us with a copy of their policy, because they have adults who are working with people who are under the age of 18, and we expect them to follow certain guidelines. And so they'll supply us with their policies if they have them. We'll be able to review them and make sure that they meet, what our requirements are for keeping kids and adults safe. And then if they don't have their own policy, our policies will apply to them, and of course, whichever is the stricter policy will be the policy that we'll go with in terms of making sure. So even outside groups who come in and want to use our facilities and involve children here, we want to keep those children safe, because they're our children as well. In terms of selection of workers, one of the things that we're going to be requiring everyone to do, anyone who's going to be working with kids, will be required to allow us to run a request for a criminal record check or a background check, and this applies to all staff and then all volunteers who are working with children. So this is going to cover all of our youth workers. It's going to cover any of our Sunday school teachers who are teaching classes that, again, who are working with kids who are under the age of 18. It's going to, this is going to work all of our, anybody who's working with our music program with kids, anybody who's volunteering with Vacation Bible School. Ultimately, you know, this is going to be very, very far-reaching. But again, we are making that commitment to making sure that we're keeping the children and the youth who are here at St. Andrews safe. We run the criminal background checks through LexisNexis. It's a group that we've been using now for a number of years for ASP. It was the group that ASP has recommended that background checks run through. The cost is minimal because the fact that we are a church and we are a nonprofit, so we have a very extensive background check that checks criminal records across the United States, and it's for a very small cost. The more that we want to check, if we need to check licenses, if we need to check driving records for people who are going to be driving the van and the bus, then we spend a little bit more money to check that. If we felt like we needed to run a specific background check here of local courts, that's a little bit more expense, but right now we're not doing that given a lot of things, given the size of our community, given coverage by local media, given our proximity to law enforcement in the justice system, etc. So for right now, we're not adding that. But so the cost is pretty minimal. And right now, St. Andrews will be paying for that as we get everybody's background checks processed. All of that information remains completely confidential. Any results will be kept strictly confidential. The information that's needed for those will be kept in confidential files here at the church. Like I said, we've been using LexisNexis now for a number of years for ASP. I've also used it when Brian Williams and I have gone to confirmation camp with our kids the last couple of years. Everything remains completely confidential. And the way LexisNexis does the run is when I run a background check, I get a report back that will say that there are 0 derogatory reports, is what they refer to them as. They call them derogatory reports. That means that nothing has come back negative on someone. And again, this is a national records check. Now, in terms of disqualifying offenses, ultimately that's going to be determined by the leadership here at St. Andrews as to what we would see as being a disqualifying offense, what would keep someone from being able to work with our children and youth. And that would be something, again, that would come back as derogatory on that criminal background check, and then we would have the pastors and our staff parish relations chair take a look at that.